but now you work with people on their mindset, essentially. So
Correct.
maybe a bit of a backstory as to how
Yeah.
you got to this point, and then we'll talk about some of those techniques that you use.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, I was in my cupboard back there, that cupboard there, and I saw that there's a signed big portrait of when we won the league, signed by John Terry, saying, "Hey Rob, ledger what you do, JT," and
No
it's
way.
in the
Cool.
back of the cupboard, like behind my clothes. And I looked at that and I was like, would I put that on my wall?
Mm.
And it's not me anymore. And so I'm observing it. I'm not making a decision yet. I'm like, it was an achievement. Am I proud of it? I don't. It was It was another person, and I'm not a very. I don't put my status on the walls, but then also it could be that that's one of my biases, and I should put it on the wall, like it's an achievement. I'm not the type of person that really I look for the negative. I'm talking about my behavior, right? So I'm just saying that came up. The JT was the captain of Chelsea at the time. When I was at Chelsea, I became the one thing I think that I've got is this skill of seeing patterns. It's just something I've always liked to look for patterns. And so when I was with players, I'd be able to see patterns in their movement, and I'd be able to go, "Oh, they're locked up in their SI joint at the back," and the physios would go, "Huh?" And they check and they go, "How do you know that?" And I go, "I don't know." And I find it very difficult to express myself. But in seeing the patterns, I went from seeing physical patterns to seeing that players who are more emotionally stressed or stressed were more likely to get injured. And this was in the 90s. And what I started to do was to look, and whenever someone got injured, I try and find, or in other clubs around the world, I try and find a backstory, see if there was any particular instability. Or I remember hearing something about the Australian League where I don't know if it's true, but players who were tapped to go to another club were more likely to get leg injuries or ankle injuries because they were unstable. And so I started looking at that, and there's a lot of woo-woo stuff online at the time. I read a lot of books. I see that stress has an impact on the physical, and I went that way. I went to start to talk to the players about their non-physical inputs to their physical. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And it culminated in that story that I talk about in Becoming Masters, Mind Decentralized, in that we had a world-class player come in, and I would do this very advanced posturology study that I learned in Paris with Dr. Bernard Brico, where you look at the inputs to the tonic postural system of the body. And I would look at the teeth and the eyes and how they input and scars. It was all very fancy. And this player came in. I had the whole medical team around me, and when the player was on the scales, so he had two scales to see where his weight was shifted, and he was 8 kilos heavier on one leg, which is enormous. And each individual, expert said, "Oh, it's short leg." That was the podiatrist, and the chiropractor said, "Oh, it's the neck," and everyone said their bit. And I remember thinking, because I've been in the closet massively with this work that I was doing, I wasn't telling anyone. And then I said to him, "What's the best sex you've ever had?" My joke is 30 minutes later, he said, "Oh, it was this Romanian chick or something." But I wasn't listening to him. A normal type question in a football club, by the way. So he didn't think anything of it. And I just watched his weight shift, and he went perfectly balanced. And I was like, "Oh my God, I've changed him with the thought." I got him to have like a positive thought. It could have been negative thought. And then I said, "What's the worst day of your life?" to get comparison. And he hit it very quickly. He didn't ask him what it was. He went 9 kilos heavier. So I looked at everyone in the medical team, and they just, this complete cognitive dissonance. Their eyes sort of crossed. They didn't know what just happened. It went completely against their reality. And I walked home that night, and I write in the book and I said, "Oh my God, that something just happened there. I don't understand, but that's where my pathway lies, to be able to access that sort of 1 and 0." code. So that started a journey that brings me it brought me to a point sort of 10 years ago of working fully with elite performers and anybody who wanted to work with me on that 1 and 0 code. So I found a way to switch that from a 0 to a 1 to strengthen the energy of the body. And then through looking at myself, I wasn't really changing, and I had a few clients I couldn't change, sort of like deep behaviors. So I was very much insecure and never thought I'd be comfortable in myself. I was constantly thinking I wasn't doing enough. I was fearful, um, fearful, worried, um, just lacking confidence and these negative, intrusive thoughts. And I couldn't get rid of them with all my techniques. And so I started to dig into observing what they were. And through that very hard work of being very still and watching the thoughts, I saw a pattern. And then I saw the pattern and went, oh my God, that seems to be like two words. And then working with my clients, I started to bring the whiteboard, which is here, and I started to hear words. And I said, you keep saying the same opposite words. Do you know that? And they're going, oh, yeah, I do. And I write it out. And then I drew a circle and it built into this model. I was like, you're trying to go up there, but you keep going there, right? And they're like, oh, my God, yeah. And through observing myself, I found 5. There seemed to be 5 patterns. I'm still looking. Maybe there's some more, but I think there are 5. I know. And so when I'm with my clients, I help them identify the pattern, and then I explain why the hamster wheel came about. And in understanding that, I can then say to my clients, you have the whole framework for why you are like this, why it controls your whole life, why you do what you do for a living, why you're with a partner who's the opposite, why you do this, why you have these tendencies, addictions. And now the game starts. You either blame, you either think that life's happening to you, or you play the game, which is you're happening to life based on these 5 main operating systems.
Awesome. What a story. I love it, Rob. Thank you. And so you've teed me up brilliantly, basically. So what are those 5 operating systems that you now take people through?
Okay. So we've mentioned one already, which is like able and unable. Mm-hmm. So for instance, you probably were thinking, why aren't they able to control themselves? Or why are they unable to control themselves? Why aren't I able to stay calm? Why am I unable to not be calm and I lose my shit? Right. So that's one. So there's able and unable. There's right and wrong, which comes up a lot. I saw it come up. And again, you play this game, it's a lifetime game. You just go to different levels. So anyone who says, I'm masterless, that's the mind. So that's where it goes a little bit deeper. So we have right and wrong. We have gain and loss, which is a huge one. We can talk more about it. We have support and letdown. So you're either someone who supports themselves, or you're someone who's a people pleaser and they support everyone else, expecting them to do the same, but you get let down, which is supporting someone. If you don't, it's sort of like you let them down. You literally let them down. And then paying attention to and ignore. So I had clients coming on saying, yeah, my husband, he's not paying attention to everything that I'm doing. He's sort of ignoring, and then I ignore him and I sulk. And then when I first saw that, I was like, I have a lot of clients who talk about, my wife, she doesn't pay attention to how important this Bitcoin is, and she ignores the value. And I kept seeing, so that was an unusual one, paying attention to and ignore, but it comes up a lot. So I think that's the 5 I've said.
And sorry, so just to run back through this, so able, unable, right, wrong, supported, not supported.
The support and letdown.
Support and letdown. attention and no attention.
Yeah, paying attention to and ignore. It's kind of the
Okay.
extremes.
Okay. And there was one
And
more. I
then
can't remember
gain
what it
and
was.
loss.
Gain and loss. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
And these
And,
are
and so,
terminologies. So in different languages, it might be slightly different. But
okay. Is there a use case you can think of that helps to identify what someone might come to you with as a problem? And you could walk us through like how you were able to help that person.
oh wow. Um, is there something that's bothering you right now? Do you want to?
Yeah, well, we can do it on myself. Sure.
Yeah, I
Well,
just
what?
what I could. I mean, there's so many, and what I usually do is it just goes. I don't. I've written about them in the book. Some of the case studies. Let me start off by saying with myself, one of the hamster wheels, which was pretty brutal for me, well, gain and loss, because loss is extremely difficult for me. So I had to see that and also open myself up to the right. I didn't say the hamster wheel, you're either jammed up on the left or the right. So any human is either on the right, they're constantly doing their yang. So it's a yang, masculine energy. So they're constantly doing stuff. They're very able. They support themselves. They always think they're right. They pay attention to valuable things. And these people hate being unable, being wrong, being ignored, being unable, and losing or loss. It's a kryptonite. So they usually have addictions, which gets them out of the hamster wheel, their mind, but then they feel unable to control it. So the wheel is always balanced. That's another key principle. You think you can control by being able, like what do we the philosophy? What were we talking about?
Stoicism we were talking about.
Stoicism. Yeah, you've got to be there, but you're going to get absolutely smashed to the left.
Mm,
That's the nature of the game. You have to see that the yin and the yang and the
mhm.
yin always is always balanced by life. So the more you jam up there, the more you're going to be hit here. You'll get cancer, like the extremes of cancer, manic depression, disabled for the people on the right. For the lefties, like myself, is you're actually safe feeling unable, loss, ignored, unconsciously. You're safe there. You spend all your time trying to be as able as possible, but you support others to be valuable, and you keep getting exhausted and rolling back to feeling unable. So I've gone from someone who was extremely unable, frightened, always thinking I've done something wrong, constant feeling of not worthy. Even when I was on the bus with the cup for Chelsea back in the day, even when I was given the most amount of space at Chelsea's new training ground. I was the top guy, head of strength and conditioning. I felt completely insecure, completely. And so, in understanding that, and now playing the game for several years, and when I get triggered, I know that it's within me and it's nothing to do with out there, and that's liberating. And then I can dissolve the trigger. So, for instance, this morning, and this might sound little, but our dishwasher packed in and we rent, so I have to get in touch with the landlord, and I felt that I've done something wrong and that I'll annoy him. And I observed that. I knew which hamster wheel it was, right or wrong. And I know who developed and created this operating system is little Rob when he was 3 or 4. And so I immediately go, it's okay, it's cool. I know the game. So instantly that dissolved, and I could go back to being present, and I logically message him and say, the dishwashers. Yeah. So there's the freedom. And so it's completely transformed me. And I've gone from someone who was completely fixed on being famous and achievement because I felt worthless, which is the drive for everyone, by the way, to achieve when you look at it deeply, and to try and be valuable in the eyes of others because I'm not lovable, which is the deep play, is that we're all trying to get love, connection, belonging, which are the needs that we didn't get in childhood, which created the hamster wheel. So that valuable, constant drive to be valuable and famous and important to others has completely died. That hamster wheel has no more energy. So now it took me over a couple of years, like, oh, who am I? What do I enjoy? Because I spent my whole life thinking I enjoy being famous or being important, and that's an illusion. That's the game. When you step out, when you start to dissolve these and start to move, say, up the levels in the game, you become very still, and out of that stillness, ironically, you actually achieve more. And there's the Taoist principle of non-doing.